For those of you who may not know me, my name is Claudia Martin Ayowade, and I'm the dining services dietitian on campus. So periodically I try to do little educational, informational sessions regarding nutrition and different things that we can do to kind of improve our health. And so today I decided to talk about prebiotics and probiotics because it's kind of a big deal it's become a movement. And there is information out there that frankly, that I myself didn't know. So it's a little bit more detailed than just picking one up off the shelf. There's a lot of information that you need to consider before making a choice. And I'm not here to tell you what choice to make. I'm just here to present the information, and then you can decide which one works best for you. So all disease begins in the gut. And so that's part of the reason why probiotics have gotten the takeoff that it has, because if your digestive system is good, then more than likely the rest of your health will be fairly good, unless there's something that's really predisposed to something. And even then, depends on the diet and the lifestyle that you have, you can still keep that in check. But most importantly, you need to make sure that you have a healthy digestive system, because I know we say, I had a professor that told me once that people always say, I love you with all my heart. And he said, yes, your heart is good and functional, and it plays a vital role in your health. But he said, I would prefer they said, I love you with all my liver, because your liver really is the one that literally is the glue that holds everything together, because everything processes through there. And so, again, it is a vital part of your digestive system. So everything that goes in, it absorbs and it's the gatekeeper, or the one that dispenses what needs to be dispensed elsewhere. And so it is important that we keep our digestive system healthy. So there's a lot of products on the market. And many products, they do not provide the benefit that you think they do. And that is true of a lot of health products. And so sometimes if you, just for instance, say, like those energy bars or something like that, for people that are looking to be healthy, they're thinking this is a healthy item, but a lot of times you might as well have eaten a donut. Some of the sugar and the other contents and preservatives that's in it is not helpful at all. And so there's a lot of marketing that goes into products. And so the other thing that you need to keep in mind is the longer the shelf life of a product, the worse the product is for you, because it means it has a lot of preservatives to keep it long, because natural foods break down fast, which is why foods that are organic sometimes doesn't last us. That's okay, bye. So anyway, a lot of the probiotics that's on the market, even themselves, it's a lot of marketing. So some of the things that you read on the label is not necessarily the benefit that you are getting too, because once something gets popular, everybody kind of jump on the bandwagon to make money. And so a lot of times you really do need to do a lot of, because a lot of the products that's on the market are not backed by clinical science. And you kind of want the ones that's backed by clinical science, because they've been tested and proven. And they can't say it's backed by clinical science if it's not, because that's against FDA regulations too. So what are you buying? So probiotics, they are good for you. In the greater scheme of things, it's better to have something than nothing, because they really are good for you. But depends on the strain that you're getting, and depends on your own lifestyle. I know your own diet is going to determine the effectiveness of them as well, because sugar feeds bacteria. So if you're eating a lot of sweet stuff while you're trying to take probiotics, which is supposed to increase the bacteria that's in your stomach, you're not getting the benefit, because if you're eating a lot of sugar, you're building up the bad bacteria and not really helping the good bacteria that you're needing to grow. So your diet does play a role in how effective the probiotic is going to be. Pasteurization. There's some probiotics that's found in dairy. If it's pasteurized, the heat's going to kill some of that. So that's something that you need to keep into effect too when you buy certain products. Of course, if you're on antibiotics, you need to take some kind of probiotic, because antibiotics kill both good and bad bacteria. So you want to make sure you take some kind of probiotic, yogurt, yogurt depends. If it's yogurt with fruit at the bottom, that's not going to help you much. So you need something that has, because again, because of the sugar content, so you may not even get what you're wanting. The concentration, the amount that's in it, and we'll get to that where you see the number, if it's 15 million or all of that, that's important too. And then you should know, you need to know what you're looking for so you're not wasting your money. So probiotics is not new. This has been around for a long time. And so fermented foods was even mentioned in the Bible. As they said, the Bible dated back to 13th century BC, reports that Abraham offered to God showed in an oak wood fermented milk in Genesis. Climates in the Middle East and Asia kind of, they help sustain, help sustain a lot of people's desire to have probiotic foods. So if you know, in Asia they do a lot of fermented foods, so like South Korea with the kimchi and all of that, that's all really good probiotic foods too. So there's some foods that you can eat or add to your diet that will increase your probiotic intake too. It's not just the pills that you buy in the store. And the food, and my rule of thumb always has been, if you can get it by food, then get it by food and don't use anything else. And then everything else should be supplemented. So your food, if you can get anything that you need for your health through food, then that should be your first choice. And so, so they talk about, it's been around for a long time. In the Roman Empire, fermented milk was used to treat diseases and treat illnesses. So this is nothing new. We're just kind of catching on, going back, because you know how sometimes you have the newer generation think what the older generation used to do is not really, we're smarter. And I think now it's kind of going back where people are looking back at what they used to do in the olden days and trying to embrace some of those things, because they're realizing now that some of those things really had value. So Hippocrates coined the term that all disease begins in the gut, and he considered fermented milk both a food and a product of medicine. So that's one of the, for me, that's my go-to choice for probiotic, is I buy Kefir, and we'll get to that. And so there's historical concept, and the reason why it's called probiotic was in the 20th, first introduced in the 20th century by a Nobel Prize winner from Germany. And he was the one that kind of coined the phrase probiotic. And he suggested that long life, because he did studies and found out that the Bulgarian peasants, that the fermented milk that they were drinking was actually beneficial to their health. So he's the one that first did the study and kind of realized that, wait a minute, there's some things here that we can use. So he coined also the lactability. He named the main probiotic strain, because there's different strains, and the main strain that is most popular today, he's the one that actually named it. So it's been around for a while, but now lately it's been just catching on. And probiotic means life. So and biotics refer to friendly flora in yours, which is why antibiotic means it's killing. If it's anti, it's killing it, versus if it's pro. So that's the reason why when you take antibiotic, you want to add more bacteria back in, because it's killing everything. And so it's living in your digestive tract. And your food, it helps break your food down too, and help your body gets the nutrition better from that. And then of course it helps ward off the bad bacteria that can cause diseases too, and the viruses as well. So there's a bunch of good ones in your that makes up your immune system, which is why sometimes if you're exposed to certain things early, your body builds an immunity to it. So 70 to 85% of our immune system is made up of some kind of bacteria, yields, and yeast and molds. So those are the good one. WHO and Food Agricultural Organization refer to probiotics as living microorganisms, which often administered in adequate amounts and confer a benefit to the host. So probiotics are global, and they have existed in diets around the world for a long time. Sauerkraut from Germany, that's a probiotic. The Russian Kefir, which is what, most of the time, that's what I use for probiotic intake. Kimchi from Korea. And all the cured meats and cheeses, of course, because they're made from bacteria and stuff. So those are the cheese that's cured the most. So the older cheese actually have more bacteria than some of the normally processed ones. soy sauce, pickles, sourdough breads, all that's the yeast and the bacteria that they use to make those are all beneficial to us. They need to preserve food due to lack of refrigeration. So that's how some of this fermentation started, because they had to preserve the foods that they were offering or they were trying to eat, because there was no refrigeration then. And so part of that is how some of these came to be. So it wasn't by design sometimes, it was literally by practice and necessity, and then they found out that there's actually additional health benefits to that. The practice has continued today. So the benefits of probiotic. There's a lot of benefits to it. Again, if we have a good digestive system, it kind of helps everything else. And so because of that, it helps it helps us digest our food, first and foremost. It competes with the unhealthy bacteria for food. And so and it grows enough where it can help to kind of minimize the amount of bad bacteria that grows, because it colonizes faster. Produce antibacterial substances, again, to kill the bad bacteria. It helps manufacture your all your B vitamins, which are essential vitamins for daily activities and just health. It helps extract the minerals from our food. So as we eat, some of the minerals, which are like your calcium and your phosphorus and your all those other things that, your sodium and all that stuff, it helps to extract that out of the foods that we do eat. So again, sometimes if you don't have a healthy gut system and you're eating foods, you may eat the healthy food, but your body doesn't get to get all the benefits from some of that. Again, it depends on what you're eating too. Alcohol is another thing, that if you're drinking alcohol while you're eating, you're not going to get the benefits of all the food you're eating, because alcohol just impairs absorption. So that's little things that you have to consider as you're planning your meal and trying to do the best to maximize what you're doing for your health. It helps produce essential fatty acids, which is what we need to lower cholesterol, and so your omega-6s and your omega-3s, it helps to get your body get more of that, or at least benefit from the ones you ingest. It eats excess sugar in your digestive system. It stimulates cell repair, so it works good in you for amino acids. It increases the number of immune cells, again, make you healthier, so you're not easily sick. It fights allergies and inflammation. So I know a couple of people that had severe allergies that started taking probiotics, and it's kind of kept the allergies in check. So again, that's something that you have to talk to your doctor about, what's best for you, but that's one of the things that you can think of if you're trying to fight certain issues that you might have, especially if they're prolonged. And then it transforms toxic metals and chemicals into useful compounds. So sometimes if you're eating too much, I don't know, deep sea fish, mercury or something like that, then it'll help to kind of balance that out too. So it does have a lot of benefits. The strongest evidence for probiotics to date is that it reduces diarrhea during antibiotic use. So sometimes if you are, I know in a hospital, depends on what it is, if you have C. diff or something like that, they'll try to give you more probiotics to kind of help with that. It prevents and treats urinary and genital infections. It treats irritable bowel syndrome, eczema on kids, because it helps with that. Fight foodborne illnesses, of course, because it's in the digestive tract. It's going to enhance your immune system, of course, because it's producing antibiotic strains to reduce the amount of bad bacteria that you have. And then it's going to, they said it reduces time in colicky babies. That's one of the newer studies that's out, that they found that when babies are crying because they're colicky, it's again, that's a digestive issue a lot of times. So if they give them probiotics, smaller amount, but it does help with their colic. So that's one of the later studies that's been out. And then some other studies that just came out fairly recently, in the last year or so, that they're finding that, again, it helps to reduce colds and flu, reduce overuse of antibiotic too, because if you're not sick, you're not needing antibiotic. Treat kidney stones and colic, of course. Prevent cavities and gum disease, because again, your gut systems, if your gut is good, then everything else kind of fall into place, because your body, it's sending in signals to different cells in your body to respond a certain way. So again, it all makes sense because everything is connected. It treats colitis and Crohn's disease, combats antibiotic resistance, treat liver disease, which obviously would make sense again because everything is processed through the liver anyway. Battle cancer, and then they're talking about that they think it helps to manage autism, lower cholesterol, which is definite, and then fight bacteria that causes ulcers. Again, because all that is digestive, and so ulcers is usually caused by your strong stomach acid because your acid is not. You produce the acid, but it stays in your stomach longer than it's supposed to, which is because there's something slowing down, not processing properly, and so that acid over time burns the lining of your stomach, so that's how you get ulcers. And then sometimes it's caused by the slowing down is caused by bacteria too. So if you have probiotics, that's getting rid of the bad bacteria, then the chances of you having that acid buildup is a lot lower. So that's part of the reason why it works for your stomach ulcers. So why invest in probiotics? Only a few people eat traditional foods. So, I mean, unless you're Korean and you eat kimchi every day or you eat sauerkraut every day. I mean, most of the time for us, we eat sauerkraut during spring when we have Irish, St. Patrick's Day. That's the only time most of the time I see it. So, and I don't know how to make it. And so we're busy. You know, we have busy lives. We want to be we want to prepare meals as quickly as possible. Sometimes people don't eat home as much as they used to. So all that goes in because some of this stuff really takes time to do. Then we buy a lot more processed foods because it's cheaper, you know, and money is tight. And again, part of it is cheapness and part of it is just you need speed because you need something that's fast. Fermenting food is slow. It takes time. And the addition of sugar and pasteurization limits the health benefits of our probiotic food anyway. So again, the more you can eat from different foods, it's going to be the better chance you have of at least getting enough to make it worth your while. So unbalanced flora, additional reasons why your microflora in our system becomes unbalanced. Because of the added hormones that they're putting in our food, that's going to throw our system off because again, our body is made to process natural foods. Anything outside of just natural foods, it's going to cause an issue because your body has to try to figure out what to do with some of that stuff. So that's part of the reason why your gut system sometimes doesn't work as well because it works so much harder to try to break stuff down. And a lot of times when it can't figure it out, it just turns it into sugar and then becomes fat. So a lot of times, so that's the reason why sometimes people you say this generation, they're getting, I mean, there's a lot of factors that why our obesity rates go up, but there's a lot of little things that factor into that. And a part of it is even when we try to do the best we can to eat as healthy as we can, there's some factors in play there still that affects that. Antibiotic use, because that's gone up through the roof because now people just go ask for antibiotic. And so now we're getting antibiotic resistance and we have all those other things to worry about. Birth control pills because of the hormones too. Carbonated drinks because they are sugar. And I mean, even the carbonation impedes your absorption of calcium. So if you're drinking a lot of pop or you're taking calcium, you're not gonna get all the benefit from the calcium that you need because that carbonation it impedes your absorption of calcium. Chlorine from the water, fertilizers, you know, in our food. So fluoride, pesticides, preservatives and additives, again, which is why I always say if the more you can eat with the least amount of preservatives, the better. So the longer the shelf life of the food, the less you should eat it. Because if it's been sitting on the shelf that long, then it's got stuff in it there that your body really don't need. Radiation, steroids, and of course stress. And so all those things affect our stomach. I mean, some of these things you probably wouldn't even think about, but all these things affect our stomach. So that's how that can impede our absorption and then make us become unbalanced and make us become ill where we're needing some of the stuff that we really don't need to have in the first place. So living versus dead. So you have live active cultures, and that is important if you are looking for antibiotics, especially from the dairy aisle. You want to make sure that whatever it is that you buy, it says live living culture, because if you need the one that's live, if it's dead bacteria, it's not going to help you. So, and the more live culture it has, the better. After fermentation, the product may be heat treated, which kills off good bacteria. So it extends the shelf life, but you lose some of the bacteria that you're trying to get. Live active culture does not necessarily mean that the bacteria in the product has been proven to be beneficial. It just means that that they have live ones in it. So that's your first step. You want to see if it says live active, but then there's other things now that you have to look at as well. So the bacteria type is important. So the bacteria strain consists of 2 names and 2 letters, right? The genus, the species, and the strain. So if the label is 2 names, it could be any one of hundreds of bacteria without research, which a lot of the stuff on the market kind of is. Kraft uses Bifidobacterium lactis. Really doesn't tell you much. You see 2 long names, but what does that really mean? So it's important to select the strains that are resistant to stresses that you will encounter, because even as you eat it, as it's going through your digestive tract, your stomach acid and all the other stuff before it gets to your stomach is still going to kill some of those bacteria that you're eating as you're eating them. So that's important. So it's going to be going through its own set of stresses to get to where it needs to go to begin with. So your stomach is highly acidic, so it's got to pass through that. So you need ones that will survive that. And it should compete well when it gets to your stomach with the rest of the bacteria that's already there and the rest of the flora that's in your stomach, because that's how they should work in concert with each other. So the majority of probiotic products do not list the bacteria. Health benefits can occur when there's 50 million colony forming units. So you'll see a CFU on any, and on all of them it should say CFU, and it will tell you how much CFU is in it. So for certain conditions, it may take up to 1 trillion CFU for others, and for others. The higher the number, the better, most of the time. And they said that at least 1 million live bacteria per gram are necessary in yogurt and other fermented products. And then to provide, you need at least 10 billion needed for health benefits. So is the higher CFU count better? Most of the time it is. And it depends on what you're trying to do. If you're ill and you're trying to fix something, then you want the higher number. If you're just trying to maintain a daily good digestive system, then you might not need that much. So it just depends on what it is that your goal is at that time. Many individuals use probiotic on a daily basis. In this case, of course, the lower one, if it's 5 to 10 billion CFUs, then that's fine, because you're just maintaining. You just want to make sure that nothing goes wrong. You're in a good place, and you want to keep it that way. Higher doses of live cells are great for treating specific ailments. And 15 to 45 billion is good range. But some specific ailments, like if you have irritable bowel syndrome or allergies or eczema, something that you're really trying to fix, then you probably want to go higher. There's no definitive research to support added benefits or potential drawback over 45 billion. So most of the time, 45 billion should take care of what it is that you're trying to fix. However, at least when you're just starting out to take probiotics, there's sometimes people feel gassy, they feel bloating, but that usually kind of goes away after 2 to 3 days as you continue to take it, because your body just kind of trying to get used to it. And of course, when you add in more bacteria to your stomach, it's going to produce more gas. So you may feel bloated or a little bit for a little while, but it's usually after 3-4 days, you should be fine. So if you're not, then there may be other issues there too. And a lot of times when they tell you that they have 60 billion or 80 billion or whatever, because they're playing into the fact that we always think more is good. And so a lot of time it's just marketing. And so you really don't need that anyway. And then the other thing to consider is sometimes even if it says it's got 80 billion, you may only be getting 45 because, surviving shelf life and gut and all that, you may not even get that much anyway. So even sitting on the shelf, half of them may be dead. So it's all relative. I mean, again, it's just trying to figure out what works best for you. There's the regulatory requirement from probiotics is considered like supplements. So there's no law that governs that. You know, your medicines, yeah, the FDA is strict and all that stuff, but probiotics is treated mostly like supplements. And there's no, anybody can get something in their backyard and start making supplements and put it on the market. There's no regulation. You know, there's certain things that the only time this FDA is going to step in is if they say, oh, my supplement cures cancer. You know, then the FDA will step in and say, you need to prove that it cures cancer. And so a lot of times you'll see supplement, they don't say, we cure this. They'll say, studies have shown that if you eat this particular thing, you're likely to have a stronger immune system. It supports a strong immune system or something like that. They won't come out and say. We'll get to that in a minute because there's something on here that is a perfect example of how that works. So in most countries outside of the US, though, there are regulations, and they can't say, I mean, and even the probiotics, it's regulated heavily. But for some reason, when it comes to our health, the US it's very hands-off, which is surprising because we're in a, well, I guess it's surprising and it's kind of odd, because we're in a for-profit medical market. I mean, you know, I guess most places where the government have to pay for healthcare, they try to take care of their citizens because they know the more they take care of their citizens, the less money they spend. But here nobody cares because it's a for-profit business. So most medicines overseas is heavily regulated. I mean, nothing comes on the market unless, you know, it's proven. But here it's not the case. So some bacteria associated with fermenting dairy products also live on different parts of the human body as well, which is why usually dairy is my go-to source for probiotics first. And then I try to add some of the other foods to kind of increase my odds. but I always try to go dairy first. Some of these microbes play a dual role. They transform the milk into fermented dairy product. So you have your yogurt, your cheese, your kefir. Those are all going to be items that have fairly good bacteria in them. And then being refrigerated kind of helps keep the bacteria healthier longer too. So if you buy a yogurt and it says it contains lactobacilli and bifidobacteria in addition to the yogurt culture, you're getting a more effective product. So it has more than one, because these organisms are added because they survive in the stomach. So those two bacteria, if you see any product that have those are good products to buy because it will survive the stomach acid to get to where you need it to go to be a benefit to your body. So now, remember when Jamie Lee Curtis was out talking about how Activia has just been wonders for her gut and all that good stuff, and oh my God, I mean, it's cured me of everything? Well, in 2010, Danone was ordered to pay up to $45 million for that false advertising. Okay? It was a class action. I think one lady brought the lawsuit initially, and then it became a class action lawsuit. That's why you don't see her on TV talking about this stuff anymore. Under the terms of the settlement, Danone must remove the words clinically and scientifically proven. They couldn't say that anymore. From product labels and advertising in reference to claims the product helps to regulate the digestive system. In their place, the words clinical studies show or something similar must be substituted, because they couldn't say it's clinically proven. They can just say clinical studies show. So the wording is important. Danone also must note that Activia and Danactive yogurts are food, not treatments or cures for any medical disorder or disease. Because what the FDA was saying was they were selling it as medicine. And that's a different regulation all entirely on its own. And since this is food and this is not medicine, and it's not, it wasn't, they didn't get the go-ahead to make it as a medicine. They didn't go to the proper whatever channels, research, whatever the whole deal is when you're coming out with new medicine on the market. That's not what happened here, so they can't say that.
Does it still have the appropriate?
Yes, yes, but they just can't say, because as far as the FDA was concerned, the way you're selling this is like it's medicine. You can't do that. Because again, if it's not medicine, then you can say anything you want because it's not regulated as such. So yeah, so they pay dearly for that. And then they must remove the word immunity from their labels and ads, as well as include a qualifier to the claim. Yogurt helps strengthen your body's defenses and it helps support the immune system. So you can't say that it cures or builds your immune system. You have to say it supports the immune system. So that's kind of the difference. So Kefir, this is my go-to first. This is what I buy normally for mine, for probiotics. It actually, because bacteria in milk actually colonize in the intestinal tract. It contains a far larger range of bacteria in addition to containing yeasts, which both of them work in concert with each other. I don't buy the plain one because I couldn't drink it if I did. So I buy the, I'm being honest, I'm like, ugh. So I buy, because they call it the champagne of milk, because it's literally like a cross between yogurt and buttermilk.
But if you're lactose intolerant, this...
Yeah, well, yeah, I need to look into that. That's a good question. I didn't think about that. Because there's some things that if you're lactose intolerant, once it's processed to a certain degree, you still could, because it's the protein that you're usually allergic to. That's the protein in milk. That's what the issue is. Let me check into that. Talk to me afterwards. I'll give you my card so you can email me, because now I'm curious too. I didn't think about that when I was doing this. Well, good question. But I know that if you're lactose intolerant, most of the time you can still drink goat's milk, because I did do a presentation on milk. And you can drink goat milk because the protein is a lot smaller, and so it breaks down differently in your system, so it's not as harsh on your system as the cow's milk, so your body reacts to it differently. So keep that in mind too. And I can send you my presentation that I have with the milk. I cover all milk from almond to, because they're definitely not all equal.
So do you usually just drink this straight?
Oh yeah, I just buy it at the store and drink it, and it's not very expensive. That bottle is $2.99, I think, at most places. I think the highest I've seen it is at Hy-Vee for like $3.48.
So how much of that would you drink?
You're supposed to drink 8 ounces each time. I sometimes drink 6 because I'm eating other stuff too.
So is this product go through a cooking process? I mean, like when they produce it, is it going through a cooking process that may need to heat it up or fermented?
Well, sometimes they pasteurize some milk, but when they're fermenting milk, because of the bacteria that's added, I'm not sure that I don't think the Kefir is pasteurized. Your regular milk is, but I don't think Kefir is, because of the process that it goes through, because it's a fermentation process that's different, because I think they use, it's part of the process when they're making cheese. From I remember correctly, it's part, this is like one of the leftover part of when they're fermenting cheese or milk to make cheese or whatever. So there's some fermentation that goes on here, which is why it kind of tastes different. So like I said, it's literally like a cross between buttermilk and yogurt. It's like a liquid yogurt, buttermilk mixed together. That's kind of really how it tastes. So I always buy the flavored one, because at least I get some flavor. I couldn't imagine drinking the plain one without anything. So we usually buy like the cherry or the strawberry or something like that. And if my kids are having any issues, they gotta drink it. But it is a great source of bacteria and yeast, so I usually do that, and I don't really buy the ones in the bottle, the pills mostly. So there's foods that you can get probiotics from, and I kind of touched on that earlier. So kimchi, sauerkraut, yogurt. And these foods are typically low in sugar and calories. So if you notice that usually if it has a lot of sugar, it's not going to have a lot of bacteria, like a good bacteria in it, because it doesn't work that way. They're usually high in fiber, because again, that's important for your gut health too. You need to be eating a lot of fiber to kind of get the bad cholesterol and the bad stuff out of your system. It's rich in vitamins, in various different vitamins. It's in both water soluble and fat soluble vitamins. So it's a good all around. It's good all around. So a lot of these foods have all these. So if you don't have to eat them every day, but if you can add a little bit here and there, it does help increase your odds. Some of them have high level of beta carotene, high levels of the B vitamins. They help. Of course, they're going to help stabilize your blood sugar, because again, they don't have they're not high calorie and they're not high sugar. They aid in weight loss, because you feel full, you don't eat as much. And then you're not getting as much calories when you do eat them. They'll help drop the LDL and reduce your food cravings too. And it has the good bacteria, again, that help prevent all of the other issues that you have, any kind of gastrointestinal issues. It will help to lower those, because you have the good bacteria that your body needs to prevent those in the first place. So you may not need to eat them all the time, but if you can just add them to your diet as often as possible, then that will help too. Safety. So a lot of times, again, when it comes to products that we're buying on the market, especially stuff that we got to ingest, the safety is extremely important, because you do want to know what it is that you're getting and why you're buying it and if it's beneficial. So people generally, the side effects, if they're incurred at all, again, it's usually mild, gassy, and it should go away after a little bit. FDA approval is not required for, as I touched on earlier, for probiotics sold as dietary supplements. Anything that's a supplement does not require FDA approval. So it doesn't matter what a supplement is, whether it's vitamin or sports nutrition or whatever it is. If it's sold as a supplement, it does not get FDA regulation, so it's buyer beware. Most of our safety knowledge comes from studies of lactobacillus and bifidobacterium. It's only two that most of the major studies that we have out is only from those two strains, but there's other strains as well. But majority of the few good scientific research that we have, it's really focused on those two. And then there's limited information for long-term safety. And that's because, again, there's not a lot of studies out, and so there have not been a lot of long-term studies out, because it's really in the past few years that this has taken off as far as everybody knowing about it and wanting it. So until they can get a 10-year study in, which I shouldn't think there should be an issue, though. I can't see that there be a issue you taking it long term. So probiotic, so now you have probiotics. And again, I touched on earlier that what you eat when you're taking probiotic helps make the food your probiotic effective or not. And so there are certain foods that you do eat that's called prebiotic. And those foods actually kind of feed the probiotic to make them healthier for longer and help make them work better. So those we call prebiotic, which is, you eat them before you take your probiotic, or eat them as part of your normal diet while you're taking probiotics, and they will help the probiotic work better. So prebiotic foods are stores that meant to keep probiotics alive. And so they're non-digestible food, which means that most of them are going to be high fiber, non-soluble fiber. And they travel through the digestive system, and they are like the fertilizer for the probiotic. So again, they help the probiotic to grow strong and keep strong. And so you need them to make it as effective as possible. They're not bacteria, they're just foods. So prebiotic are specific nutrients. They're usually non-fibrous, non-absorbable carbohydrates. Again, they're high fiber, because that's what that means. All that non-fibrous and all that, that's all just high fiber foods. And they shouldn't have a lot of sugars. They should be natural sugars, not, so the fructose and the oligosaccharides are usually, those are sugars. And so it should be natural sugars that they have. So you shouldn't be ingesting the donut and everything else. That's gonna totally just not work. So they should be the natural sugars that's naturally found. So all these foods that's on here are considered prebiotic foods. So the garlic, the onion, the grains, the banana is a good source, sweet potatoes, all those are good prebiotic foods. So natural sugars found in banana, chicory roots, soybeans, most fruits, Asparagus is another good one. That's a good prebiotic food. And then other great sources, endive, dandelion greens, and just simple garlic, like fresh garlic is another good prebiotic food as well. So that's kind of a picture of what you want to keep adding to your.
So does it have to be raw for all of these?
Not necessarily, no.
So even if it's cooked, it won't?
Yeah, because you're looking at the fiber of the food, so not necessarily. I mean, the nutrients is good too, but not necessarily nutrients as much as the fiber, because most of these are they don't, your body processes them, but they come back out. So they're just high fiber foods that your body needs to. So then you have symbiotics, and that's what when they talk about symbiotics, it's the combination of both pro and prebiotics. So for your diet, you want your diet to be symbiotic. You want to have prebiotic, you want to have probiotic. That's the one that's going to make it for your best health and for the most effectiveness, so you're not wasting money buying stuff that you're not getting the benefit for, because nothing is worse than buying something and thinking you're doing the right thing and come to find out you're not getting what you think you're getting. So the prebiotics, so food for bacteria is the prebiotics, probiotics is the live bacteria, and the symbiotic is a combination of the two. So that's where you want to be. You want to be in that middle. So again, this is like what a good prebiotic and probiotic foods. So you've got the dairy, you have the kefir, you have your sauerkraut. Here's like a high bean and rice, so the beans is definitely going to be prebiotic. Then you have the kimchi, that's probiotic. You have the garlic, which is prebiotic. So if you just have a variety of food, the more variety you eat, the better. Because a lot of times people are set in their ways and they eat certain foods, but the more you can branch out and try different foods, the better, because your body getting nutrients from different places, and that's important. So the benefit of prebiotics is that food additive and starter culture. It's immune potent. I don't know what I put there. It removes cholesterol, bacteria production too. And it's gut health maintenance, because really that's what it is. It's just helping to maintain your gut health by feeding the good bacteria, the probiotics, which your body needs. And then some recent research lately, I think this came out in April, that in Sweden, they found evidence that Parkinson's disease, that they think probiotics could help that, because they're finding that from the study that came out, they're figuring out that they think some of the Parkinson's disease actually start from gut issues over time. And so they're saying that what they're figuring out is that if they can have people on probiotics for a longer time, that might prevent that. But yeah, this just came out in April of this year. And so other evidence of this hypothesis is that people with Parkinson's disease often have gastrointestinal problems, such as constipation, and that can start decades before the development of the disease. And so now, even if they have Parkinson's, because they say part of one of the issues with Parkinson's is that now you have serious stomach issues, and so they're going to go ahead and put people on the probiotic in the first place. But they're thinking that the gut issue started way back. So probiotics seems to have a promising role, either shortening the duration or preventing of some infections. Understanding the reasons for taking probiotics will kind of help us make a decision as far as what's best for our health. I mean, and everybody's different, so there's no one size that fits all for everybody. Again, it depends on what it is that you're trying to achieve and accomplish. And read the labels and make sure you ask questions. And that's where label reading comes in handy, because sometimes you buy a product, but you turn the label over and you don't know. Like for me, I know, switch the label over because I know what I'm looking for, because that's my field. But for the average person, they don't know. And label reading can be daunting, because sometimes you don't even know what you're looking for. And the government just changed the label reading, supposed to make it easier for consumers. That just went into effect last fall. So now the calorie, if your calorie on a bottle or something, it should be in big bold letters now. different, separate from the rest of the, and then they're supposed to be adding vitamin D and something else I think that needs to be added now to the label for consumers. But again, you know, it depends on the people who, if they know what it is that they're trying to get. A healthy outside starts from inside. And so you always have to think about that. Your gut, again, all diseases start in the gut. So it kind of goes back to that. And everyone has a, Hippocrates, the same guy that coined the phrase about all disease begins in the gut, says everyone as a doctor in him or her, we just have to help it in its work. The natural healing force within each of us is the greatest force in getting well. Our food should be our medicine and our medicine should be our food. Because at the end of the day, if you eat well, then that should take care of itself. Any questions? Yep.
What's the CFU, the count for the Kefir that you take?
I think mine was, God, I don't remember, to be honest. I knew when I initially looked that it was good, so I was like, I just keep buying, but I don't, off the top of my head, I don't remember. But it's good. I will tell you that. That's why I don't pay attention anymore, because I know it's good.
Okay. A lot of this says about your immune system. Mm-hmm. What about autoimmune? I have a grandson who has an autoimmune deficiency. This kind of stuff. He has alopecia, so which is an autoimmune.
Right, and would be similar to some of the psoriasis and some of the other stuff that people use it to treat too. So yeah, and I actually, a friend of mine, his son is got some kind of autoimmune. I forgot what it is, but and he's on probiotics too. The doctor put him on it, and Timmy's 10. Mm-hmm. You had a question?
When you talk about the probiotics for colic for babies, I mean, I assume that's a liquid that you would put in their milk, or?
Yeah, and that you need to talk to the pediatrician.
Okay.
Yeah, talk to the pediatrician, because they will know what's the best one for kids. Because, you know, if you give them the one for adult, then it may cause more, you know, they really be crying. So you talk to the pediatrician.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have a question about cooking food that is fermented. Like if I make a pickle, make a jar of pickle, and if I want jar, I need to put it in the water bath to cook it, to seal it. Will that heat kill the probiotic?
No, because the probiotic is being formed as part of that process of what you're doing. So, I mean, that's the reason why it takes a long time, because that bacteria culture, whatever it is that you got to put in there to make it ferment, is going to be, the end result is going to be, yeah.
But how about like miso? Because when you drink miso soup,
It's heated.
it's already fermented.
Right.
Paste. You put it in the soup that's
Right.
heating up. Would that-
But it may kill some of it, but not all of it. Because the miso has a lot of bacteria in it.
Kimchi, what is that?
Oh, it's like a fermented cabbage that's eaten. Koreans, it's a Korean deal. They eat it a lot. I used to, years and years ago, God, I feel like I'm dating myself. I used to have a Korean boss. And I used to work in this clothing store, and they were Koreans. And for some reason, he thought the reason why I was skinny was because I wasn't eating. And he just didn't realize I'm just skinny. And so he would let me take breaks like every 20 minutes. Miss Claudia, you need to go take a break and you need to eat. And so he always brought Korean food. And so I would eat all this kimchi and seaweed and all this stuff that he would feed me. And he thought he was trying to fatten me up, but I would never. That's the most fun.
Is it in a jar there?
Yeah, you can buy it, because you can buy it like at the Asian stores too. Yeah, it smells kind of weird, but it's good.
It's an acquired taste.
Yes, it is. It really is. It really is. But it's good. But it's good.
But the first time I ate it, I didn't love it.
Yeah, yeah. It takes a little.
A lot of the fermented food has smells.
Oh yes, and that's why, because bacteria. And it's the same thing in your refrigerator. If your food starts to smell, that's when you know it's going bad, right? And the reason why it's smelling is the gas that the bacteria are letting off. So that's how you know that it's got bacteria in it. So in the case of the kimchi, it's good bacteria, but it's still gonna smell. But that's how you know that your food is going bad, is because the bacteria that's being formed is releasing this gas, and you smell that. So it's the same difference. It's just that one is bad bacteria, one's good bacteria. They're both gonna smell. Yeah, kimchi is definitely got a smell to it, but it's good.
And blue cheese, is that it?
Yeah. Any heavily fermented cheese like that, yeah, because that's part of the process. You need the bacteria and all that to get it to taste like that.
I don't think it's fermented, but it's not a probiotic, but the kombucha, is that?
Yeah, kombucha is more of a yeast, but it's good too. It's actually good to add to your diet as well. Yeah. I just bought some at Sprouts because they had them on sale.
Well, the reason why I'm here is because my daughter has recently become an ambassador for the Plexus.
Oh, yeah, a friend of mine, Facebook friend of mine sells that.
Yeah, and you know, I had some immune issues earlier this year, and so she wants me to do this, you know, help me. And I'm resistant to it because I feel like food will work, but I don't know. I mean, I'm not asking for your endorsement or whatever.
No, because I don't know a lot of details about it. I see her selling this stuff on Facebook, and I just kind of keep going because I'm like, I eat healthy. I don't need all of that. So I keep going. So I have not really looked in. Maybe I should, just so if I have questions like these, I can answer them. But I saw her selling that. That's how I even know what it is, was because I see it, but I just keep moving along. I eat.
But how can you really find out about them? Because you can't go to the website. They're going to tell you what they want to tell you.
And that's true. And then the only way you'll be able to find anything about it is if there's some independent scientific study. And a lot of times you'll have, whether universities or something that do some of these studies and some of these health things, to see if there's, and I can check some of our sources from the American Dietetic Association and stuff like that, because we keep track of research that's how to do any kind of food or nutrition. So I can type that in. I can go check and find out if there's anything, because that product hasn't been on the market that long, I don't think. So I don't know if there's any studies done yet that's published, but I can check, because if there's any published studies out there, we usually get them. So yeah, definitely get my card before you leave, so you can contact me, but I can check into that too and see. Thank you for coming, you guys.